Hello. Thank you for joining me today on this, what I think is a really important topic. Super excited to talk about it. Actually, I'm a little bit anxious, maybe a little bit nervous about this one. I've never given this presentation before, and it's kind of a rant almost. It's a presentation from conversations I've had over the last few years, and really more so in the last couple of months. So thanks for joining. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think it's important because we really are in dynamic times in the Agile Scrum Master realm. I mean, I can't go on LinkedIn without seeing something that says Agile's dead. And I click on it because I'm interested in it. And then the algorithm thinks that's what I want to see. So I just see more and more of Agile is dying, Scrum Master's dead. I'm part of the problem. I posted, I think, once about this topic as well. And I remember talking to someone recently and asking them, like, is Agile dead? And they paused for a second and then came back with like, well, what else are companies going to do? And I thought that that was a really good response because in a lot of ways, Agile is a great operating model for complex, dynamic domains. And that's where we're going in this industry. So I don't think Agile is dying. I don't think Agile's dead. And I'm not seeing a decline in the use of Agile with our clients in an enterprise. In fact, if anything, I'm seeing it expand outside of the software development realm, especially as AI comes online and more people are getting access to more technology and automation. So yeah, I think Agile's adoption is high across enterprise, but at the same time, I think Scrum Masters as a position, Agile coaches even, are getting hit a little bit harder. And you see reports, 2023 when the big layoffs happened, there was a lot of organizations that just got rid of their entire Scrum Master core. So it's definitely a kind of a dynamic here that's weird. All right, but I think it's important to think about that. Look, Agile still remains a thing. It's just, what about the Scrum Master position? And companies are asking, like, hey, is the Scrum Master position actually worth it? And they should ask that question. That's a valid question for companies to ask. They should be asking that question. And I believe that they are. I believe the Scrum Master does provide a positive ROI for an organization. And I think if an organization and teams and programs are going to be better off if they invest in the Scrum Master position, but we need to prove it, or we need to actually prove that value. And that's what this talk is going to be about. And, I've been a Scrum Master for over 10 years in different capacities. I actually have done Scrum Master stuff, and then I started a company kind of around the Agile space, Go Forward 100 Consulting. And so I've hired, I've trained, I've coached, mentored Scrum Masters. I've taught Agile and Scrum Master positions to organizations. And so I've done this for a while. And at Forward 100 Consulting, we still have Scrum Masters on our team. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk through today is how we approach the role. If you're not familiar with Forward 100, we're a premium staffing and execution partner. We only hire former military leaders, so officers, senior NCOs, people that have led teams and programs in the military. And then we embed as vendors with our clients. And we like to roll up our sleeves, get into the trenches, and build high-performing teams, from the inside. That's how we approach this. And so it's founded on military-grade execution, discipline, leadership, bring that to technology organizations, and really drive alignment, communication, and clarity. And so, like I said, we've been doing the Scrum Master thing for a while, and a lot of this talk is around that. But a quick disclaimer. Okay. First, I'm using a fair amount of memes in this presentation, and I can't tell you if you think they're funny or not, but I like them. But also, this isn't a talk on Agile theories. So if you were looking to hear about how to do better planning sessions or story point poker or stand-ups and retros, this isn't the talk for you. And I might say things that are outside of the Agile and the Agile dogma or the Agile norm, and you might disagree with some of these points, and that's okay. But these are just going to be my opinions, and take that for what it's worth. So what we're going to talk about, there's three main focus areas in this live event. The first one is going to be how we frame the position as a Scrum Master. We're going to talk about how you should lean into AI, and then how we should find, capture, and share wins inside the organization. And like I said, this isn't a discussion on Agile theories. It's more about how we should approach the position more than how we should be doing specific Agile things. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about framing the position as a Scrum Master. There's actually two parts to this. And the first one for me, again, is really my perspective when people ask me about how many teams should a Scrum Master handle. And I think the answer is more than one. Now, the days of every team has a dedicated single Scrum Master, I think those days are over, or they're declining. So for me, I think that a Scrum Master should at a minimum have 2, potentially 3 teams. And so I think if you start to get into 4 to 5 teams, that's too many. But if you only have 1 team and you're a good Scrum Master that's building a self-sustaining team and the team's operating well, you're going to get bored because the team doesn't really need you there all the time, and you're not constantly training and building them up. And bored Scrum Masters can be dangerous because we want to fix things, and so we just start fixing things that maybe aren't broken. So if you have 2, 3 teams, I like 3 as a number. If you have 3 teams, you're going to be a little bit busy, and that's good. It's good to be busy because it drives efficiency. It's going to focus you on the highest ROI changes. And when you have these teams, it really helps if you get extra benefit if those teams are somehow related or dependent, because you just build in a natural alignment and communication person as the Scrum Master. It's a lot easier for the Scrum Master to facilitate, to make sure everyone's aligned and working together. So I like the 2 to 3 teams per Scrum Master, and I think we should be focused on that going forward because it does add value, which we'll talk a little bit about later in the presentation. Now, the second one I think is more important when we're talking about how to frame the position as a Scrum Master. I believe that the Scrum Masters are responsible for the value of the product through the system. Now, it's a little bit different, I think, than what I'm used to, what a lot of Scrum Masters maybe think about the position of a Scrum Master. So let me explain what that means. A lot of Scrum Masters that I see out there really focus in on value of team practices, making sure that the team is operating well. And I think that that's really important, making sure we have good sprint plannings, good stand-ups, retro, like all that's planned, working inside the task management system to make sure things are organized. That's kind of table stakes for me. Like that's what a Scrum Master should be doing. And so a lot of Scrum Masters I see really focus on that one space of what they're focused on. But from our perspective, and what we do at Forum 100 is think about maximizing the product value through the system, because really your team, especially in larger enterprises, is one piece of getting value through the team. Okay, so let me give you some examples here. So let's say your team is running well, right? You have a team, they're operating efficiently, they're able to do great plannings, they're predictable, they have great retrospectives, like all the things that you would normally expect from a Scrum Master, but the product team is bringing in just either really bad requirements or they're constantly changing requirements and they don't know what they should focus on. Even though the team's operating well, the team's not delivering value through the system, because value from a team is more than just the actual team itself. It's going to be from idea to in production. So as a Scrum Master, I want to help the product team figure out what's going on. And so I'm going to try to engage more with the product processes to help them improve the value of the product my team's working on. The same thing with like stakeholders. So let's say you have a stakeholder that isn't getting the right information, or maybe they're not getting the right information from your managers. And I think as a Scrum Master, we should be able to try to help with that. We should lean in to getting better information to people who need it. Okay, even dependent teams. Now, obviously, Scrum Masters should clear dependencies. But if you have a team that's constantly struggling and constantly blocking your team, then you should go figure out and engage with that team to see what's going on. Like you should be leaning in to actually trying to help that team figure out and get better. I guess you kind of see the point here. Same thing like test and QA, deploy and release. There's a whole flow of value. And as a Scrum Master, on a team that's delivering that value, I want to help that entire flow. When I say this, sometimes I get, that's not my job. And maybe you're right, but I think it is. I think anything that affects the value of the product your team is working on should be in your scope. So there's a book we all read at Forum 100 called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. It's a great book that really takes this mindset that, look, we can do more than we think. We can affect and influence more than we actually think. And then there are going to be things you can't fix, but you can mitigate. We can make things incrementally better. And this drives you to be the solution Scrum Master, right? So it's not we just throw our hands up and we're blocked. It's this happened, we were blocked, and now here's what I want to do to try to address it. And that goes a long way when people are deciding if a Scrum Master is valuable or not. Now, obviously, I have to caveat this with the fact that there's just going to be some things you're not going to be able to change. Now, we come up with this. I came up with this a while ago. It's called the sliding scale of agility. Just sounds really cool to say. I like saying it. And basically, what it says is how agile you can be depends on the amount of constraints in your organization, your team, your tech stack, your product, your industry, all of those things. And so if you are building software, let's say for a nuclear power plant, you're going to act a lot different than you would if you were Mark Zuckerberg building Facebook in your garage. They're different. You're just different levels of constraints, and trying to complain that, or trying to fix the fact that a nuclear power plant doesn't have like a push button CI/CD release, like that, it wouldn't make sense for that domain. It would be dangerous. So understand that where you are in the domain is important, and so if you can take that context along with what you can change, then you can make a lot of positive influence for the value of the product. So what can you do? You can do stuff. All right. So if you are running into things that you don't have authority, because look, we're Scrum Masters. As Scrum Masters, you almost rarely have authority. Now, especially for us, we come in as contractors. So the contract Scrum Master doesn't have a ton of organizational authority, but that doesn't mean you can't build a ton of organizational influence. And those are different things. And so the things that I try to do are build influence to try to help maximize the value through the product, the value of the product through the team. All right. And so things that I like to do, you can make things visible, right? If you have problems that are constantly slowing your team down, use your Azure DevOps or Jira dashboards, try to make things more visible. And then do what we do well as Scrum Masters. Lead with empathy, build relationships, make friends. And then you can give other people credit if you find ways to fix the flow of other teams. And that's okay, because it'll eventually all come back. And the goal is for your team to have more value, more product value through the team. Okay, so that was the first one, which is frame your position. The second one is be the influence of change with AI. Okay, we need to be AI first Scrum Masters to succeed in this new world. I'm sure everyone has heard about AI, probably super sick of talking about it, right? And it's like you're on LinkedIn, either Agile's dead or AI is taking our jobs, or someone built something really awesome with AI and you feel bad because you didn't. A lot of AI FOMO out there. But all of the leaders in these organizations go to the same conferences, and they're all coming out with the same thing. And they all want AI and they want it now. So I don't know who created this cartoon, but I wish I could pay him royalties because I use it all the time and it's becoming more and more relevant. But who has to execute on the CEO's vision? That's going to be the middle layer of the teams doing the work. So your directors, your senior managers, your program managers, team leads, like everyone's expected to just do AI. And it's not like they have a lot of time. It's not like they're given more budget to do this. It's basically like, just do it. If they ask for more budget, then they get told, you just use AI. You don't need more budget. So you're kind of stuck in this loop. And it's a huge opportunity for us as Scrum Masters. Because I think as Scrum Masters, we should be leaning into AI because we're the process experts. And that's where we should be framing us in the AI realm. So be the expert at implementing AI for your teams. Like I said, it's a huge opportunity. And also because AI is is expanding out into non-engineering organizations. And so we're giving people the ability to do engineering things, and they've never worked in an engineering domain before. And we can be a huge help to that. So be the process experts. We're supposed to be the process experts. So figure out where and how we can implement AI in the system. And if you are hearing this and you go, I don't know AI, learn it. It's not super complicated. You don't have to be an engineer to learn how to do this. And how you actually implement AI is going to be more important than what you implement. So the process of implementing AI, just like the process of software development and Agile, this is a great space for us as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches to come in and add a lot of value with how we implement AI in the business process. So we actually came up with four components of a philosophy for how we approach implementing AI. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. There's another video on my LinkedIn Live account that goes into this in more depth. But I do want to run through these four because these are the four principles that that really help us be successful in implementing AI and actually getting ROI. And the first one I think is the most important, which is like you have to lead with a human first approach. And whenever I'm trying to automate anything, or I'm looking at clients and how we can improve processes with automation or make people more efficient, I always start with, we're not going to take your job. Like this is part of building psychological safety that we talk a lot about in the Agile space. And we want to do that when we're implementing AI. So AI should be a tool that makes us better. So that's the first one. Because if we don't do that, I mean, this is a big change management exercise, right? If we don't do that, then people are going to be resistant to adopting and helping out. The second one is that anything that you're going to automate should actually be valuable. I know, this is a pretty amazing comment that I just made. Obviously, it should be valuable. But we should tie things to business outcomes, and we need to define what valuable means. So we've done this. And you can create your own, or you can use this, but you should be thinking about value in a little bit of a different way. So we define it as it either saves people time, which obviously is valuable, you can do things faster, or it improves process quality. Like it's possible I could make something that takes more time to do, but the quality output is worth the extra effort. And most importantly, it doesn't create system bottlenecks. So for all of you that have your Jira AI agent that creates a user story and drops it directly into the backlog, be careful, because pretty soon your backlog could have 300 to 500 stories, and it's going to be a mess, and you're not going to know, what's actually in there and what's in priority. All right, so think about it from a systematic perspective. And we're process experts, so we really need to lean into this process. If you don't have much Lean Six Sigma experience, that would be a good training course for a Scrum Master to start to get into, because how we map out identified value is going to be really important. So if you want to automate something, or you have ideas for how to automate something, start by mapping out the process, identifying value steps, and then most importantly, before you automate something, see if you can simplify and align the process. Basically meaning don't automate something that shouldn't exist in the first place. All right. So think about this from a value perspective and really map it out and show where the value is. So once you've identified some value, then I think the most important thing we should do with any sort of automation implementation is do it in an incremental way. And this should be really natural for us as people in the Agile Scrum space. That's how we do things. But I have clients come to me and say, I want to automate this process. And when they explain the process to me, it's the most complex, multi-system, multi-variable. This is a huge process, right? And what they want is they want to build Jarvis from Iron Man. They want something where you just tell it what to do and it does everything. And that's not, you can maybe get there eventually, but that's not how you're going to get there. And so all of these AI automations, if you're going to lean in and do this, they're essentially software products. We should do things the same way we do software products in Agile and Scrum. We should do it with tight feedback loops, small incremental steps, identifying MVP, thinking about change management, right? We want to release something small, get the value while we're building the next thing, get feedback. These are what we do as Agile coaches and Scrum Masters. And then at some point you'll get to an area where it's like still too complicated to automate, and that's okay, right? Then you end there and you're ready to go as the companies release out new capabilities. But do it in an incremental way. Don't try to take on too big of a project. Then the final thing that I think we should be thinking about when we're talking about how to automate as Scrum Masters, we should do this in a sustainable way, which means we know that when we build something, it actually has to adapt to changing business processes because things change all the time. So when you're thinking about building automation, think about how to do it in a sustainable way. And anyone that's been in software knows if you have really bad underlying data and a great application, you have a really bad application. And so the data that you train agents and AI on is going to be, it's really important that we do that in a good way. We'll actually be thinking about process and process documentation the same way engineers think about data and data integrity. So be very cognizant of how you source the information and spend more time on that. And then from an agent management perspective, these things can drift, things can change. So how do we make sure they're still relevant? Something to think about as you lean in more into automation. I'm not going to go over all of these, but have some sort of sustainable, some sustainment framework as you build these out. And this is going to help make you the expert because nobody else is talking about this. No one's thinking more in a process mindset. They're thinking more about how they can just do things faster. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how to frame the position of a Scrum Master and really how to lean into AI with some framework on how to do it. The last piece is how do you prove your value and how do we actually capture and share the ROI of the position? Okay, this one's a little more challenging, but I'm going to go through a few things that I do when I go into new clients. The first is that your team, your software development team, should exist for a reason, right? Like there should be a reason why the company is paying for your team. And so I like to get really clear on what does the team do? Like what is the value the team adds to the organization? This should be a really basic, easy question. And I wish it was, I do, but it's not always, right? A lot of times, especially in bigger projects and bigger programs, bigger enterprises, a lot of times there's teams that aren't really sure. And so if they aren't sure, I always ask the question of like, look, if everyone on this team just quit and walked away and the company didn't backfill them, like what would happen in 3 to 6 months? Like what would be the fallout? And then the inverse of that is the value. So try to make sure you know what the team is hired to do and what the value is that they bring to the organization. And that could be anything depending on the domain you're in, but every team should have an answer for that. And then find a way to track it. We should know if what we're working on is actually adding value to the organization. And if we track it and we realize it's not, we need to do something different with what we're working on. And so this type of action actually focuses the team. And as a Scrum Master on a team, being on the team that's delivering more value, that helps show ROI to your position. And the second thing I think about a lot is the leadership that are asking the question, is the Scrum Master position worth it? We should actually reach out and try to understand more about those leaders. Now, as a Scrum Master, we might actually have 8 bosses. There could be the director of Agile Delivery or the manager of Agile Delivery, then the manager of product, the manager of engineering, the manager of UX, the manager of QA. Like there could be a lot of different influences. And so the first thing we do when we go into an organization is actually map the airspace. Let's try to figure out who is influencing our position, our team, and we try to figure out who they are. And then we want to figure out what they get measured on. Like what we should try to make them look good. And if you don't know what they care about and what they report to their bosses, then you should ask. Like that's a good question to ask a stakeholder. So, and when I know that, I want to be proactive. I want to lean into things that they care about and then provide them that information. Right. And so if you're the person that is trusted to always give the right information, that in itself is valuable. That's a valuable thing to have to be known for in an organization. And as Scrum Masters, we should do that. All right, and then there's this last piece, and we'll see how this goes. Okay. Because I like to think about this. All right. But I also understand that this might feel a little bit weird to people, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Because it's true. In reality, time is money. Software development teams are expensive. Okay. And we, as Scrum Masters, we can't add direct value. I mean, we maybe, but like, we're not writing the code. We're not going out and finding the requirements. We're not writing the designs or doing the testing, right? Our value is allowing the team, giving the team, providing the team more time to focus on the value they were hired to do. So I think about time and money and money framework. And like I said, teams are expensive, usually between 1.5 and 3 million a year. It's probably a range. It depends, obviously, on where your engineers are and your cost of living and size, but that's a pretty good ballpark. And so I think in terms of this ROI, like is the meeting or the process change we're going to make actually worth the cost that we'll spend in time? But if you think about this and you make these small improvements over a long period of time, those things compound and they become valuable. And so you can actually start to put dollars and cents to this, and you can even ballpark these. So let's say you had a team of 10, you got 6 engineers, PO, BA, a couple QAs, and you're averaging about $80 an hour per cost. You might not have that number. That's fine. You can guess. And generally, an hour of work would cost the organization about $800. So let's say you go into a new team and their stand-ups are a hot mess. All right, they take 30 minutes. Everyone's confused, and it's not clean and organized. And you come in and fix that. You apply process changes that turn the stand-ups from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. Just doing that. On this team, in theory, you've saved $1,000 per week in value-added time. Now, if you do that over a year, you've essentially saved this team $50,000 a year. Now, that's one team. If you did this for 3 teams, then you would be $150,000 a year in savings. And this is just a different way to think about how you provide value to your organization. And I like to think about this, especially when I go into a new client. I want to prove my rate. I want to prove my bill rate that I've actually provided enough value to justify having me on board. So you could do this in a lot of different sessions. Let's say you had a new project come in, or a new feature come in, and it doesn't seem like the team's aligned on it. So you're like, hey, let's all get together. Let's do some sort of story mapping session, really define MVP. Because of that session, you drop 25% of the scope and you save the sprint's worth of work. Just that alone, 80 hours worth of work at $800 an hour, you're saving about $64,000 a year in savings. The point here isn't to actually do this and report it up. I wouldn't recommend that, but to think about it this way and think about driving efficiency. Because if you just improve efficiency by 5% annually on a team that's costing the organization 1.6 million a year, which again is on the low end, I think, you're saving $80,000 a year just for that team. If you can do it for 3 teams, that's $240,000 a year in savings, and you can show a good ROI. Okay, so that's a way to think about how to approach the role. And like I said, I don't know if I'd recommend putting out that number, but you could. But you should at least be capturing the wins of efficiency and get in the habit of capturing it. So keep a log of what you've done that's been a win for the organization. Maybe it's major releases, maybe you changed stand-ups or retros, you had some sort of process change. And I would take that and send it out quarterly to the team. Just send it out. Just capture it, send it out, and say, look, here's the things that we've done over the quarter. Here are some wins. And you should maybe have the same thing with your leadership. You should set them down and say, here's the state of the team. Here's what we did last quarter. Here's where we struggled. Here's what we're going to focus on. Being proactive about showing that you're trying to improve efficiency helps leaders and organizations understand the value of the position. All right, so I'm right at time, so I'm going to wrap up briefly. I want to say, first off, I still believe in my core, the Scrum Master is a valuable position. It provides ROI for the organization, but you need to prove it. And then how do you do that? You think about your position as, we're not just one Scrum Master per team. All right, we can be a force multiplier, do multiple teams. You should also think about what is it you are responsible for, and you're responsible for the value of the product through the team. Like, that's your goal. You should lean into AI because everyone's talking about it, and you should become the AI expert. And then you should seek out and find the wins, capture them, and share them as much as possible. So I'm optimistic actually about the Scrum Master position. I think it's going to make a resurgence. I'm hopeful that it does. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me here. My information contact is here. Obviously, we're watching this on LinkedIn, so you can hit me a message directly there. Thanks again. I appreciate you watching.